TV.
Hello, everyone, and welcome. My name is Anne-Marie Sanchez, and I am the moderator for this evening. And our timekeeper is Pat in the front. Raise your hand, thank you. Our volunteers assisting this evening have their hands up, and they are Darcy, Pat again, Michelle, and Marianne. We'd like to begin by acknowledging the land on which we gather and the many Indigenous people of this region. The three longstanding Indigenous groups of this region are Anishinaabe, Haudenosaunee, and Lenape. I'd also like to recognize the First Nation communities neighboring the City of London: Chippewas of the Thames First Nation, Oneida Nation of the Thames, and Munsee Delaware Nation. We recognize that we, as the Urban League members and community, have a role to play in relationship building and reconciliation. And that reconciliation has to be more than just talk. It has to be based on action. Megwech Yako Anishik. The Urban League of London is hosting all candidate meetings with partner organizations from across London, including ANOVA, Climate Action London, Inclusive Economy London and Region, London Cycle Link, London Environmental Network, the London Intercommunity Health Centre, London School of Racialized Leaders, London Middlesex Local Immigration Partnership, Pillar Nonprofit, and Young London. We are hosting 14 meetings throughout London before the municipal election scheduled for October 24th, 2022. A volunteer-run committee was struck by the Urban League of London and has been meeting since January to organize these meetings. The committee is composed of individuals from various organizations across the city and set the goal of encouraging participation in local government and the political process. The committee has invited all candidates to participate. Along with partner organizations, the committee has also created a list of important questions to ask the candidates. We request that everyone here today be respectful to the candidates. London.ca. Also, a big thank you to Fanshawe, who are filming the event for the broadcast. Now, let me explain the ground rules that we're going to follow. I've drawn the candidates' names in their presence from a hat to determine speaking order. Each candidate has 2 minutes for an opening introduction. Our first candidate will draw from a hat a question, and they will be given 2 minutes to provide their answer. This is followed by remaining candidates who have 1 minute for their rebuttal. This continues until each candidate has drawn one question. Candidates, please be sure to speak clearly into the microphones. You are able to remove them from the stands if you choose to do so. Once every candidate has completed a question from the hat or box here, we will then select questions that have been provided by the audience. If we exhaust all questions, we will return to the questions from the box. How timekeeping works. The timekeeper has 3 cards: a green card, a yellow card, and a red card. When your allotted time begins, it will start with the green card. At the 30-second point from the end of time, the yellow card is held up. The red card is held up when you must immediately end your answer. As moderator, my job is to move the night along and to ensure each candidate is treated fairly and has the same amount of time as the other. All candidates were provided with questions in advance of the all candidates meeting to afford them the opportunity to prepare their responses. I will read the questions as they're drawn. Before we begin, I would also like to point out that candidates in the room who are running for school board trustees, that is, I believe, Leroy Osborne. He just stepped out, unfortunately, but you see his sign over there. And I believe there's also Marion Larson wanted to attend, and she left this particular message. And I quote, Marion Larson sends her regrets at not being able to attend the meeting as she has COVID. Please pick up one of her white postcards at the back with the information about her Friday virtual meet and greets if you would like to meet her and ask her any questions. Now we're going to start with introductions. As I had mentioned, I drew the three candidates' names for speaking order, and the speaking order is as follows: Becky Williamson, Sam Trusso, and Miriam Hamou. Becky, if you'd like to begin.
Okay. My name is Becky Williamson, and first I would like to say thank you to the Urban League of London for hosting tonight's all candidates meetings. Thank you so much. So we can introduce ourselves and what our platforms are. I worked at Western in IT for 40 years. I'm now retired. I feel that my time in IT will be an asset to the City Council as technology is crucial to efficient operations of a city. While at Western, I applied as a mature student and worked on a BA in criminology and psychology, which took me 12 years to achieve. As a matter of fact, it took so long that my daughter and I graduated at the same time. So, and that's commitment, right? So once I finished my BA, I went on to receive a diploma in writing. I have 3 beautiful children that are now out on their own doing their adult life. My decision to run for city councillor was not done lightly. I had to be 100% certain that I could commit wholeheartedly to the position, and I can do this. I love London and want to give back to my city, and this feels like the right way to do this. With homelessness and poverty on the rise and a lack of affordable housing available, I feel these issues are the ones that deserve a higher priority, as well as crime on the rise. London needs more solutions to these issues.
Thank you. And now Sam.
Thank you very much, and I'm very happy to be here. I'm wondering if I should, no, I don't need to stand because they're, okay. So my name is Sam Trusso, and I've lived in Ward 6 for 21 years. I moved here in 2001, coming from California, where I worked as a law librarian at UC Berkeley, and I was finishing up my doctoral work at UCLA. Since I first got here in 2001, along with my wife, Marie Blasch, who is here, I've been very active in the Broughdale and Greater Old North neighborhood, working on a variety of different neighborhood issues. And I think over the years, I've earned a strong reputation as an active community member. Over the last few years, I've been more active in university issues. I've served on the University Senate, and I currently am completing a term on the Board of Governors. I've been very involved in understanding the dynamics between the campus, the greater campus community, and the university, and I hope to continue that. Now, in terms of my priorities, I'm seeing increasingly that the priority that I want to bring out first is affordable housing, because the affordability crisis that London is facing right now is very serious, it's very acute, and it cuts across the board. It affects people from all different walks of life, and it affects people who are well-housed, and it affects homeless people, and it affects people in between. And I'll expand on that a little bit when if I get a housing question. I hope I do. My vision for London is a city that lives up to its reputation as the Forest City, where residents can afford to live. That's just so important. I want a diverse, inclusive community, one that is safe and secure for persons of all ages and visions. And finally, I understand the limits of city government. I've studied municipal law. I've taught courses in it. I fully understand.
Thank you for respecting the time. Last but not least, Miriam.
Hi, I'm Miriam Hamou. I was born in London. I'm 4th generation London, Ontario, so I have a lot of roots here. My parents have always served our community. My parents were stewards in the Muslim community coming up, and so was my grandfather. So I've always had service in my life. I've served not just the Muslim community, but the community at large in London. I went to school here at Old North, well, Ryerson, which is now called Old North. Went to Central Secondary School, graduated from Western as well. After that, I took some time and did some work in Ottawa. I spent some time as a chief of staff for an MP there. 4 years in federal politics. I then went and did international politics for 4 years, where I worked with the Syrian Coalition to try to bring the stories of girls and women who are being hurt on the ground, who are being affected on the ground. And I brought those stories to all of Canada and the US. I've got interviews on CNN. I've got interviews with a great deal of people, but I'm talented in advocacy. So this is why I came back to London. I have 2 daughters, one that's 14 and one that's 11, and they live in London. And so this is the reason why I came back here. I want to create a city for my daughters to grow up in that's fair, that's equitable, clean, and safe. And I also want to keep the talent here. I've got a yellow card, so I'm going to stop now. Thank you.
Thank you very much, everyone. And now we will start the formal questions. I will bring the box to the first candidate so they can draw the question, and I will read it. Okay. Thank you. So this question pertains to housing. And remember, the first to answer has 2 minutes, and then the other candidates have 1 minute for rebuttal. The federal government's new national housing plan aims to cut chronic homelessness by 50% in the next 10 years. Currently, London faces critical challenges in providing safe, adequate, and affordable housing. What role do you see the municipal government taking to help achieve the 50% reduction?
Well, to reduce homelessness by 50%, there needs to be available housing, not temporary short-term housing. So London does have a housing stability action plan, and we need to adhere to that and ensure that people have access to the resources and tools needed for their individual needs and concerns. These tools need to be user-friendly and standardized forms, language to work, and we need to work together in a unified approach for this problem. Homelessness impacts all sectors, labor, health, education. When someone has a place to call home, it can promote overall well-being. Promoting innovation and supporting initiatives that provide the greatest value to the housing stability is what we need to do. We need to find the root problems for people that are homeless. You know, they're just not homeless because they want to be. So we need to look at the root problems and see what those are. And then, you know, look for affordable housing. We need to look at all these things together. They all go hand in hand, just as food security also goes with this. And that's all I really have to say.
Thanks, Becky. And sure, Miriam, would you like to go first, and then Sam?
I think anybody who lives in London should be able to rent or buy a home in London. That's the bottom line here. I've been working together with developers, social housing agencies, land and building owners, and we're looking to build and create affordable homes. Economist Mike Moffat from Ivy and from the Smart Prosperity Institute has advised our council, the London Council, to approve and invest in building family-sized units to reduce home prices and help decrease the shortage. So what I want to do is build 50,000 homes over 10 years. What we need to do at the city is make sure that zoning and planning works well, and I've been talking to developers, and they want to be in the solution for homelessness. They want to use their own money. These are a lot of family friends that I have, but they're willing to put it forward.
Thank you.
Yes, Well, what I've seen from the current council is a disappointment in terms of creating affordable housing. And I think the best case in point was the vote just a few weeks ago where the council voted 10-5 not to adopt the staff report to put in the maximum number of affordable units. And it was just I just could not understand how they could do that. Yes, the worry was that the developer would just drop the project if we said you have to put in 90 some instead of 60 some. I don't think with a project of almost 1,300 units, that's going to happen. I think that was a folly. Now, the city has a lot of powers at its disposal that it could be using to improve the housing stock. And I think I'm just going to stop since it's yellow.
Okay, Sam, you're next. Thank you. Now, this question has the theme of belonging. There was a 50% rise in reported racially motivated hate crimes in London, Middlesex between 2020 and 2021. What tangible actions do you think are needed to happen? What tangible actions do you think need to happen to change this trend?
I think the City of London has made a lot of progress in the last year in terms of dealing with the question of that's being raised here regarding misogyny, regarding Islamophobia, regarding anti-Semitism, and regarding other forms of hate. And I think that we need to be working with the police to make them understand that when there is a hate element to a crime, as there often is, that it's prosecuted as such. Now, the city has developed I think a very solid foundation in terms of a series of boards and commissions that are dealing with this issue. And I plan on taking leadership from people who have lived experience in these areas. And I think it's important that we not undermine the advisory committees that are working on this issue and that we give them the support that they need.
Thank you. Becky, would you like to provide a rebuttal?
Sure. I think that there needs to be more education. Education in the schools to let them know that, what hate crime is and what hate incidences are and what the consequences are. And that they just need to know these things, because some of them don't. They just, they get in their little groups and anyways. And have those conversations with kids and with adults also. So education is, I think, very important. And of course, reporting the crimes to the police and the police taking action is also important to reduce the hate crimes here in London.
Thank you. Miriam?
So when I see that there's a 50% rise in racially reported motivated hate crimes, I think there's good news and bad news to that. The good news is people are actually reporting. Before, nobody reported. Things were happening all over the place. Everybody was too afraid to report. So now we're actually getting some reporting. So that's the good news. The bad news, however, is that there is a 50%. So what we need to do here is we need to encourage different cultures to really get out there and so that we can, as you were saying, educate people, food, culture, have festivals. These are the ways we can get people invested in each other's cultures. But exposure really is the best way to get to know each other. I also want to let you know about City Council. City Council currently only has 4 women. 2 marginalized people in terms of not being the status quo of race. And that's all we have. I'm one person running for council, and I'm hoping that we can at least get to 6 or 7 women on council. It's not fair that our voice is not being heard.
Thank you, Miriam.
Thank you.
And you're up next for the next formal question. This question pertains to the environment. Pollution of the Thames River is a complex problem that includes raw sewage being dumped during the high rainfalls, phosphorus leaching into the river causing algae blooms in Lake Erie, and tons of garbage going into the river and contaminating the water source of our neighboring First Nations communities. What, if anything, will you do to address this complex pollution problem?
So this is one of the questions that I had the least amount to say on, so it's going to be very short, so you can put those away. We as a city really need to stop taking the path of least resistance. This is the issue. We're dumping raw sewage into the Thames. We can't be doing this. So the way forward is to invest in this, come up with sustainable methods of dealing with this issue as we grow. We're going to work together with our Parks and Rec department and an environmental department to see what kinds of solutions we can come to.
Thank you. Sam, would you like to start with the rebuttal?
Yes. We have to start by asking, where is this pollution coming from? It doesn't just drop from the sky. It's made by persons. It's made by persons who are engaging in activities that we need to engage in. But before we adopt any development projects, we have to ask very hard questions about what its environmental impact is going to be. And I think, again, this is where the current council could be stronger and where we need more understanding of what does it mean to put in this many units in terms of the storm sewers, in terms of the amounts of toilets that are going to be flushing, and in terms of what's going to eventually go into the river. And I think it's a problem that we have not addressed well.
Thank you. Becky?
Okay, well, from what I understand, the city has developed a $285 million long-term plan to cut Thames River pollution over the next 20 years. That's what I found in my research anyway, so I hope it's true. This plan includes replacing old sewers, which are not like dual sewer systems, which means that the storm sewers and sanitary sewers, they're separate, and that's what they're moving towards replacing right now. And also the water, the amount of phosphorus which is going into the Thames, which contributes to the algae blooms heading into the Thames, has been cut by 30% since 2009. So upgrading plants to handle the wastewater and is important, ensuring that these policies and protocols that we put in place to cut phosphorus going into the river are adhered to.
Thank you. So this ends the portion of formal questions. If you registered for the All Candidates meeting, you had the opportunity to submit a question in advance. So we'll be going through those questions in the same speaking order. So Sam, you'll be next. And here's the first question from our audience members. This is a situational question. You're sitting in a distributive council where no one can agree. The vote is split in the middle. What would be the best tiebreaker?
The best tiebreaker would be trying to persuade, using your abilities of persuasion, some more of your colleagues to take your position. And I think that that's something that is doable if we can stay away from this tendency that we've had on council to sort of form into blocks and groups. And I'm thinking back to some former councils where we had people of a variety of different political persuasions working with each other, something that wasn't expected when people were elected. And I want to call out Nancy Branscombe, who's on my literature. I also want to call out Gina Barber and Joni Beckler, who I worked with very carefully during those years. There are ways of doing it. But if we start out by being in blocks, it's not going to work.
Thank you. Miriam, would you like to start with a rebuttal?
Sure. I think I agree with Sam on this one. It's all about the persuasion. So just going forward and trying to persuade people to take that viewpoint. If it is a split vote, you have to talk to somebody, or maybe you can negotiate with someone on a vote. Say, okay, if I vote for you here, I'll take a vote. I'll vote for you. I'll vote with you here if you vote with me here. So there's ways to do it in order to come to some resolutions on council.
Thanks, Becky.
Well, one easy way would be to have an odd number of councillors. But persuasion is also, I agree with you, Sam and Miriam. having the evidence and to provide concrete evidence for your side to persuade people to come over. Evidence is always important. So yeah, I agree with those, and that's it. Sorry.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
And my apologies, I actually started with the wrong order. Becky, you were supposed to start, so are you okay to go next?
Sure.
Okay. So the next question we have is, would you be comfortable raising taxes? If so, for what programs and services?
That's a good one. I don't think I would be comfortable raising taxes at this point with the economy the way that it is, with inflation the way that it is. People right now are struggling to make ends meet. And I know 1% of $2,000 might only be $2 or $20 or whatever a year or a month or whatever, but still that all adds up. It takes away from groceries. So no, I wouldn't feel comfortable raising taxes at this time. There's other ways of, figuring things out.
Sam, would you like to provide a rebuttal?
Well, I think there are other sources of municipal revenue besides using the very regressive property tax base, and I think we should always be exploring them. I believe that any politician who during a campaign makes a no raising taxes pledge, I think that's bad policy because we don't know what's going to happen. And we've had this promise made in the past and it's not turned out well. Do I want to raise taxes? No, I don't want to raise the property tax because it is a rather regressive form. Municipalities need more flexibility. And of course that has to come from the province. I will say this, there are going to be a lot of pressures for us to increase. We already hear from the police. They're going to want new police people, new police officers. We are going to have a lot of difficult decisions to make during the budget process, and I am not willing to start out before I even begin that process by saying I'm not going to raise taxes because we might have to.
Miriam?
Yeah, I'm no taxes. I'm no raising taxes as well. Inflation was 8% last month. I visited the women's shelter this morning, as well as had a meeting with the Muslim Resource Center. The biggest need right now in all of these places is basic needs: food, toothpaste, deodorant, any types of stuff that people use on a daily basis. Increasing taxes is only going to make things harder for people every day. I'm sorry, I was speaking to one of my neighbors. She and her family, they bring in about $100,000 a year, family of 4. They cannot make ends meet. If we raise taxes and they have to pay extra taxes monthly, I don't know where they're gonna make up that money and how they're gonna pay for it. This also punishes renters. It also punishes people that are buying houses. When property taxes go up, rent goes up.
Thank you. Miriam, you're actually next for the next question. Okay, sure. The next question is, what do you propose to do to prevent the neighborhood crime we are experiencing?
That's a great question. Thank you. I want to hire police. They've come to us with a request for about 50 new police officers. I'm 100% on board. Our call waits, I mean, today, before I came here, there was a big, huge car accident in front of my house. So while I was helping people, we didn't even get a police officer out to come to the scene because there are no police officers available. 2 nights ago last week at my house, somebody tried to break in. I actually have it on camera, the creepiest thing of a man looking inside my daughter's bedroom window. And we can't get help. There's no police to come to help us. So we have to hire police. The situation on Richmond Road downtown, there are criminal elements within the homeless community, and they are making things terrible for them. So I'm all about hiring the police.
Becky, would you like to start with a rebuttal?
Sure. I agree with that, with hiring more police, because it is, from what I've heard going around talking to people, is that crime is on the rise. Their garages are being broken don't leave stuff in your cars because they're being broken into. A police response to a home invasion where the people are home and they actually come into their house. Police didn't respond for 36 hours. Someone at 2 in.the.morning banging on someone's door, and they call the police and they don't show up till like 6 or 7 in.the.morning the next day. So I agree with more police, and maybe also looking at what the police are involved in and taking some of those things away, like, for example, the noise complaint. I think that's now going to bylaws. So maybe looking at what else can we take away, to lessen their load also.
Thank you, Sam.
So here we go. No new taxes. We're not going to raise taxes, and we're going to hire a whole bunch of new police. And you can't do both. And I asked. Yes, you can I not be interrupted, please?
Miriam, please respect his time. Thank you.
Yeah. So I guess I would ask people that say that, what are you going to cut? And in terms of hiring new resources to help the community with these terrible problems that people are quite rightly describing, I'm not sure that a police first response is always the best approach. And we need to think about what other professions are out there that can be partnering with the police to do this. And I see some efforts. But to say I'm not going to raise taxes, but I want to hire 50 new police officers, it doesn't make any sense. We have to make choices.
Thank you. Next question is for Sam. How do you plan to address racism and hate? London faces a serious housing crisis, both for affordable housing and for the homeless population. How will you tackle that? So it seems like there's 2 questions. Sorry about that. But given that we already spoke about housing, I would like to ask, how would you address racism and hate?
Well, I tried to start before by talking about some of the good work that's being done by some of our task forces and people who have experienced this firsthand. And I intend to go the same route. We have set up a number of different bodies that are working on this, people that have expertise in this area, and I'm going to take leadership from people who have lived experience in this area. I'm not going to come in and try to say I know more about this. Now, as a Jewish man, I have felt a lot of anti-Semitism in my life. And I think I can address some of that. But there are people in this community that know a lot more about this than I do, and I'm going to be looking to others for leadership, and I'm going to support them as a counselor.
Thank you. Miriam, would you like to start with the rebuttal?
Sure. I mean, I've been racialized my whole life, pretty much. I'm going to just say that I think that I would know about this more than pretty much any of the research out there because I've actually experienced it my whole life. But what I'd like to do is, again, we've created an inclusion, diversity, and equity group at the City Hall. Sorry, I was going to say the university because I'm thinking about the university, but at the City Hall. And we have people working anti-Islamophobia. We've got somebody working on Indigenous affairs, and we've got somebody working on anti-Black racism. So we are dealing with race. And just a few days ago in City Hall, we looked at a new equity tool that will be put forward to all of our agencies within London, all the agencies and all of the different areas within London. But I do think representation matters.
Thank you, Miriam. Becky?
Okay, I agree with partnering with groups and people that know about these issues. I myself, I'm not educated in that. But education, also educating people about racism is important. So someone like myself is more familiar. And London is a diverse place, so we need to look at all these groups and
Thank you.
Sorry.
That's okay. We have another question for you. What are your plans with regards to fighting climate change?
Fighting climate change. Wow, that's a big one. Well, there's always landfill, I mean, anything that goes into a landfill is releases toxins into the air. Trying to get as much out of the landfills as we can, like the composting green bins. Solar panels on businesses that could use them would help with not using as much electricity and just following what's out there, what the programs are for climate change right now. And there is a lot, right? So, reducing gas vehicles in the city's arsenal and maybe going with electric or hybrid would also help. Yeah.
Thanks, Becky. Sam, would you like to provide a rebuttal?
Yes, the city has very broad powers to deal with matters of the environment, and this has been very controversial over the years, going back to the pesticide issue. This can often end up in court, and we have to take a bold approach. It's wonderful that the city has declared a climate emergency. It's wonderful that they've come out with the next document, but it's going to take political will to implement some of these things, especially if it's going to be stepping on toes of established industries. Now, for one thing, we have to reduce emissions. We really have to reduce emissions, and that includes getting people out of cars. And I think building a viable cycling network is really going to help. I'm a big advocate of that. And I also think having better transit, which I hope comes up in another question, is going to help. Transit, cycling, we need to do a lot of work, and it's going to be controversial.
Thank you. Miriam?
There are many different ways we can meet this target, and that's what I like about the Climate Emergency Action Plan. It's something that we can work with together with neighborhoods to create something that fits all of our needs, that fits for us. So one of the things that I love is urban agriculture. I've been working with Gabor Sass on trying to figure out where other places in the city we can do urban agriculture, as well as pollinator gardens. And I like little things that you can do, like no mow May. Which is something that I did this year. Don't mow your lawn in May so that you're bringing in the bees and whatnot. But I think Sam is right. We do need to limit our emissions, and one way we can do that is by investing in electrical and EV infrastructure so that we can get gas cars off the road. And again, I do believe in investing in bike lanes, protected bike lanes, as well as fixing transit.
Thank you. So that ends for our section where it was with pre-submitted questions. So now I'm just opening the floor to the audience. Thank you. So I will start with the first three that I see. So first row, the lady, and then the woman, the man in the burgundy, and then the man with the purple shirt at the back. You're third. Please go ahead.
This is directly related to what you just said. And I hesitate to suggest anything that involves more duties for the police. But for many, many years, I have observed over and over again that people in London do not know how to use car signals. They do not use them for left turns. They have no idea that you need a few seconds with the car signal on. That would stop numerous long lines of people waiting for some person to go left. Why not go there first? This is a very simple thing. It's not that simple, training people to drive after years of not doing it properly. But it would work and save a lot of emissions. And if I could say very not simple either, but basic, which is people don't cook, so they throw out food along the path. So is there anything that the city can do to enhance people's ability to cook?
Thank you. So, nope, that's okay. So we'll start, yes. So a couple of things. We'll try to focus the question to 30 seconds and one question at a time, if that's okay. And we'll start with Miriam. Thank you.
I already started anyway. The green bin program is coming. It is coming. It's rolling out. It's in 2023. It's coming. We've already got we've already got people doing the green bin program. Is this something that?
I think it's useful. It's basically what you need. It may not be useless, but you need to reduce food packaging.
Okay, so I don't know if that's a municipal issue, so I don't know how to answer that question.
Sorry, that's okay. So, yeah, one opportunity to ask the question. And are you done answering it? And that's okay if you feel like you are.
I think I am. I know that Germany actually did something like this, but it was federally based, like it was based on top of so I don't think the municipality can actually get into something like that. But
Okay, so then we'll start with if Becky wants to provide a rebuttal, she can, and then it will be Sam.
Oh, well, I agree with the green bins, of course. I've been waiting for that for a long time. And right now I have a composting bin, so most households can get a composting bin for that. For the packaging, it should be just as easy as putting it in a blue bag or in a blue box. And yes, it's not, I know. You see them all over the place.
you're right.
Yeah, it's true, it's true.
You're right.
Yeah, yeah. So yes.
Sam?
Yeah, well, we all agree that the green bins are long overdue. I'm not holding my breath because the city has been dragging its feet and it's time for the green bins to arrive. And we've needed them for a long time. I really disagree with the approach of saying, well, this is not a municipal issue. There's nothing we can do about it without getting a full, thorough research and scan of what other municipalities are possibly doing. The city has broad environmental powers. And even if
Okay.
So the city has broad environmental powers, and we also have a lot of persuasion. We're seeing new emerging businesses like Reimagine that are just doing a wonderful job, and I want to help them along. And in terms of the traffic, that was really a second question, but I think we need stronger traffic safety. We need fewer right turns. The city can do that. We need to reduce the speed limit in certain places. And no matter what we do, we're going to find these speeders. There's been a lot of talk lately about people who they know what the rules are, but they just don't want to follow them, and it's a problem.
Thanks, Sam. The gentleman in the burgundy shirt.
What are your thoughts on FOCO?
Okay, so we will start with Becky, and then we'll go with Miriam, and then Sam.
Well, they're going to do it no matter what. So maybe the students are going to gather before homecoming, the FOCO homecoming. They're going to do that. So maybe what we need is a police presence during that time. From what I understand, because I was talking to a few people over in that area where the students are and that happens, and they said the police will show up in their cars but not get out. So you're there, but you're not showing your presence. If the students see a police presence, especially if they're underage or anything, they're more apt to go in a house or get off the streets, and hopefully, that would solve some of the problems. So.
Thank you. Miriam?
I've been working with a task force for the last 9 months on FOCO. I'm just going to let you know kind of what we're doing here. We've been working with the police, fire department, paramedic, Middlesex London Health Unit, Western University Students Council, Fanshawe College Students Council. What we've been doing is doing an education piece for the students. And what we're focusing on is harm reduction. And what that means is we're trying to say that take care of each other. Last year, there was a death. Last year, there was sexual violence on campus. So we want students to take care of each other. With that means that there's a responsibility that they also have to take care of the community and take care of London. We are deploying tons of police that day, and I'll be on the street. I'll be on Broughdale all day. That's where I'm going to be parking myself to make sure things don't get so out of control.
Thank you. Sam?
Well, there are a number of issues that come up here, but the ongoing problems on Broughdale Avenue are not going to be cured by any quick fixes. The university and the city have shared responsibility here. We need to look at the root causes of why we have the Broughdale Avenue and how the structural housing problem has led to the situation where we have so much blight and deterioration on that street. I hear that the students want to pay a premium to live on Broughdale Avenue, and the landlords are not doing a great job keeping the houses up, and it's really a blight for the neighborhood. One thing that could happen is the problem is exacerbated by the cul-de-sac, and I think that by expropriating a few properties at the end, they could poke through that. That's not going to solve all the problems, but just saying that I'm going to be on the street, our counselors have been doing that for years, and I do believe that the police do have a presence.
Thank you. Now, the next question goes to Sam, and it's from the person in the purple, and then I'll reassess for after that.
If I may have just slightly more than 30 seconds with your indulgence. Between 2016 and 2021, municipal taxes went up 20.2%, inflation and consumer price index went up by 11.9%. A 9% increase. This question is for all three, but it's directed a little bit differently. To the appointee, the council.
Thank you, Father.
You voted lockstep with the bloc that appointed you, and between the 100,000 that was sent to Quebec for an unwinnable lawsuit, the $12.3 million that was for consultation for New City Hall and for, I'm having pictures here, thank you, and for the development that was outside of the urban growth boundary. How can you say, and that's invariably, inevitably going to cost us more tax money? How can you say you're going to try and keep taxes down and to Professor Trosso and Ms. Williamson, where in the last two councils where it's gone up so high in property taxes, would you make cuts?
Okay, well, I know that it was directed at Miriam, but just to respect the order, and she will have her turn, but we will start with Sam.
Well, I'm going to reiterate the position that I took before, and that is I am going into the budget, the 3-year budget cycle, which is the most important budget year. You can change a budget after in the second and third year, but it's more difficult. I'm going to try to get as much information as I can at the beginning. Now, I think that the city has made some decisions that have been costly, and you have to take them on the merits. I think it's very difficult to say that we are going to hold the tax increase to a certain amount, because I hear people saying they want to do this, they want to do that, they want to hire more police, they want to provide more housing, and I think we have to make difficult choices. And I just think that we really are going to have to take an evidence-based approach to our budget determinations in 2023, because they're going to have long-term implications. But I will say this: one thing the city council needs is information in the form of business plans for different types of proposals. Recently, we had a situation where the city council voted down a proposal to have a business plan generated on a rent-safe program, something that would be very important in terms of improving the safety of our housing stock. They weren't even willing, this block was not even willing to sort of get a business plan on this essential program. So I think we really need a change in terms of our approach there.
Thank you. Becky?
Well, I think we need to reduce the wasteful spending, that's for sure. We need to be financially responsible. Like you said, sending $100,000 for something, was it necessary? Or spending 12.5 on something else, or spending 2.5 million on a bridge just to fancy it up? Is that necessary? To me, that's wasteful spending. That's not financially responsible. I mean, if we looked at all the, wasteful spending, we might not have to raise taxes. I'm not saying we should or shouldn't, but those are things that we should be looking at, is the wasteful spending. Where did we spend our money? And did we really need to? And where can we reallocate it?
We do have a volunteer just checking in on Miriam, who stepped away. So when she does return, we'll provide her the opportunity to answer the question, but we will move along as scheduled. So we'll proceed with the person in the back with their hand up. But before I ask you, is there anybody else on this side? Okay, here we go. So just to mentally take note of order, I will start with the woman with the dark hair in the back and the blue mask, then the man with the black mask, and then the woman at the front. Is that okay? Please go ahead.
Hi. So you've talked about it, and Karen as well talked about the importance of working with other organizations, and I'm curious what your take is on the importance you would play, the importance role you would play on council relative to the strategic plan in supporting your school boards in the community.
Thank you. We'll start with Becky.
Well, City Council should work with the board. They do, I think, anyways, when, approving new schools, et cetera. I'm sorry if I don't quite understand the question, but City Council should be working with Thames Valley School Board on different issues. And maybe that's something that, as a councillor, I would try and promote, working together, right? I mean, it is our city. These are our children, so that's...
Okay, Sam?
I think the level of cooperation and planning between the school board and the city has not been good. And I think this would be a really good time to reassess it. And I'm glad to see that there's school board candidates here. Great example is allowing developments into a section of the city that is open space, greenfields, and then being surprised a few years later that, we don't have enough space for children. That was dreadful. That deal was dreadful. That's the worst kind of planning. There were a couple of situations where I think the city and the school board could be better partners. I love some of the things that candidates are saying about people's students cycling to school. That's something the city could facilitate with traffic control. And I also like the idea of having more attention paid by the city to some of the school music programs where they could partner with some of the community bands. So I think there are a lot of things that we could be doing with the school boards that we're not doing.
Thank you. And now, please stand up to ask your question.
So I guess as people who haven't been on council before, I am kind of curious about what kind of advocacy experience you have kind of going into the role, and sort of if you could provide an example of an advocacy project that you kind of brought forward and how you'll bring that kind of work or that, I suppose, that sort of mindset to council and how you can kind of push things forward there. So.
Thank you. We'll start with Sam and then Becky.
Well, ever since I've been very young, I've been an advocate. I've been active in political affairs in my college days, in my graduate school days, in my law school days. I was a lawyer. When I was a lawyer in California, my work was around advocacy for housing rights. For environmental rights, I've been an advocate and I've been trained in advocacy. Moving to London, I became a member of the Housing Advisory Committee, and the main thing we did was we advocated for the registration program, which was very controversial at the time. My work on the Senate, my work on the Board of Governors just today is centered on advocacy. I've been doing a lot of advocacy work for faculty members. I was a member of the grievance committee in my union, and I've been doing a lot of advocacy work for students in terms of issues that they're having. The two big ones are affordable housing and transit, which really needs to be improved. So I consider myself somebody who is rooted in advocacy work, and this is one of the reasons why I'm so excited about becoming a counselor.
Thank you. Becky?
I'm going to be honest. I've never advocated for anything. I was busy raising 3 children, busy going to school, busy working, and honestly, in those days, not paying attention. I was distracted. However, now that I am aware of all the things that are happening, yes, I would definitely advocate for the homeless or affordable housing or food security. Those are important issues. I think now that, like I said, now that I'm awake to it, so to say, that those are things that I would advocate for. And I will definitely get involved, yes.
Thank you. And now it's time for our next question. And Becky, you'll be the first to answer, okay? Please go ahead.
Hi, I'd like to go back to the elephant in the room, which is climate change. I don't think there's much doubt in the eyes of experts that the biggest issue we've got is restricting automobiles. If we don't restrict automobiles, all these problems we're talking about are going to continue and they're going to get worse. Cars are the root of urban problems. What exactly would you do? What's the first drastic thing you would do to reduce car use in this city?
Go ahead, Becky.
Well, I mean, they are doing things by installing $14 million worth of protected bike paths. It's hard to get people to stop driving their cars. How do you do that? Are there incentives that we can give them? Where do the incentives come from? Out of the coffers of the city? It's just a matter of education. And by the year, I think it's 2025 anyways, the country, the Prime Minister wants to be gas car free, right? So, I mean, electric cars will be on the road. And with London looking at electric buses, et cetera, that should help reduce. And we just need to get ridership on those buses up more. Right now, people won't take them. And from what I understand, I haven't ridden a bus in years, is that when it takes me an hour and up to an hour and a half to get from my home to work, why would I take the bus? So we need to revamp the system, the bus system, to entice people to take them.
Sam, go ahead.
We need to improve our public transit system, first and foremost, because the bus system is unreliable now. You can see it when the students are standing out there in big groups along Sarnia or along Richmond, and the buses just go by them. And this removes people's confidence in using the bus system. People can't get to work, people can't get to school, people can't order their lives. So it's no wonder that they don't have a lot of confidence in London's bus system. We need to change that. Yes, I think we all agree we need to invest in a better cycling network. But I also want to say that many London streets, Wonderland, Oxford, Highbury, Richmond, they've been designed to allow this type of speed. It shouldn't come as a surprise that people are using these as speedways. These are stroads, and they need to be reconfigured with pedestrian and cyclist safety in mind. And we've seen deaths. I mean, this is a very serious problem.
Thank you. Yes, please go ahead with your question.
Thank you. I will remain seated if you don't mind.
No problem.
I live in Cherry Hill Village, where tenants are required to recycle. It's a fact that only 7% of all recycling is actually being recycled. And that is because 93% is contaminated. I don't believe people take recycling very seriously, unfortunately. I have seen it in my building. I have seen it in other buildings, in other apartment buildings. People just simply throw things down. They don't wash them out. They don't take the labels off. They leave pizza in the pizza boxes, in the paper. They mix up foil in the paper. They mix up various things that don't belong to go into certain bins. So now I'm asking you, how do we reach that 93% of Londoners that are not recycling properly?
Thank you for the question. Sam?
Well, I think we are going to need to look at what happens on the street. And the evidence of that, you come up to Broughdale on the day after trash pickup, and there is just stuff strewn all over the place. And I've taken pictures over the years, and some of it's really disgusting. And there's not an effort in some of the residential houses to do this properly. And I think a lot needs to be done. For one thing, if you've got a mess in front of your house, which is often the result of poor recycling habits, I think at some point the city has to just come out and clean it up. and put the bill for that on the tax roll, which they have the right to do. Now, this doesn't help you in apartments so much, and I can't speak to the apartments as well as I can speak to the residential streets I see in my community that are just absolutely defiled regularly. And something needs to be done about that. Certainly using less plastic. Trying to think of other ways of getting our groceries into our homes is going to help. And a certain amount of it is just basic, decent maintenance in terms of, like, if you're going to put out a pizza box, like, get the cheese out of it. I think a college student should be able to.
Becky, please go ahead.
I agree with that. And education, again, education, the city sends out the recycle garbage thing, and it has right on there how to recycle. People aren't following that, obviously. So what do you do? Well, I'm not 100% sure. If people can't read and follow instructions, you know, it does make it tough, right? So I recycle.
Okay, so we have 2 more questions that I see right now. So first is the woman in the second row with the blonde hair, if you'd like to get up. And then, yes, I see another question. Go ahead.
I'm curious as to what has happened to our other candidates. I mean, we came to hear her speak as well. Yeah. So anyways, to my question, homelessness, specifically along Richmond Road and Dundas Street. I would like to hear some ideas as to what you think could be done about the situation of the homeless in London.
I first just want to say we do have a volunteer checking in with the candidate and just respecting the space that the candidate may need, but don't know any more detail at this point, but just wanted to address that part. And that's fair, but I think we also have to respect the candidate. I'm sure she doesn't want to not be here. So Becky, if you would like to start.
Sure. The homelessness along Richmond and Dundas. Well, I think they are trying to do something. I mean, some people just don't want to go off the street. Some people just, they want to be homeless. How do we convince them to go to shelters or affordable housing? Well, that's what part of the plan is, right, is to get them off the street. That's a tough one. That's really a tough one, right? Because I've been down Dundas Street. I went down Dundas Street the other day on that flex, and for the first time, and it was quite filthy. A lot of garbage, right? So how do we prevent that? Or do we need more housing, like people living downtown? Would that deter homelessness if there's more residents downtown, or more shops, or more, retail? I can't really answer that, but I see those issues, right? So.
Homelessness is very closely tied with addiction, with sickness, with mental health problems, which are problems that have been caused by other levels of government that is dumped on the City of London to have to deal with. I think some of the recent work that's been done by the service providers and the coalition has been very, very illuminating in terms of talking about how we need a compassionate approach. I don't think people want to be homeless. I don't think people want to be sick. I don't think people want to die when they're in their 40s and 50s. I think people want to live in decent units. Yes, we could be building, there's a lot here to talk about. We could be building more housing units downtown by doing something about the vacancies that exist in office buildings. And I would say affordable units first. I think we need to take an affordability approach first, but we also need a compassionate approach to the delivery of services by our service providers who are trained. They're trained social workers. They're trained public health nurses. They're trained mental health specialists.
Thank you. I do see your question, but I do want to open it to the audience for anyone who hasn't asked a question yet. Is there anyone else who would like to ask a question before I let others ask a second question? Okay, sounds good. Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, please go ahead.
Just wanted to ask a question. When are the budgets passed? My understanding is the budget is soon after you're elected. Is there a chance of maybe moving the budget forward a few months so that the new people that are on council get a chance to actually look at what's in the budget to be amended or looked at so they understand and have better choices to make, or have a way of assessing things in more timely manner?
Sam, would you like to go first?
I'd be very hesitant to disturb the cycle and the schedule that's there. It's there for a reason, and we have expenditures that we have to be making. And I don't want to get to a situation where the city is just doing sort of stopgap funding. I think it's really important, quite frankly, to elect councillors who are going to be able to hit the ground running in terms of understanding the budget process and the difficult questions that are going to be made. I think it's going to be important to have councillors who can hit the ground running and have experience reading detailed documents, lots of documents, and sorting through those documents and trying to make difficult decisions. Budgets are policy choices. And I think that if you start out with a set of values in terms of what kind of city you want to see, that's going to help you through the budget process. But the 3-year budget cycle, it's got its benefits. But one of the detriments is there's a lot riding on that budget cycle. I'm ready to take this on.
Thank you, Sam. Becky?
Yes, it is really quick as soon as you get in as a councillor to look at the budgets and then approve it. I also agree that you can't really just disturb things, the status quo, so to say, and like you say, hitting the ground running. All the information you need about budgets is online. So you could be researching about the budgets, where the money goes, what it's used for in advance, so you have an idea when you get in to, approve things, right? So you know where the money's going when you get into council, and that helps, right? So.
Thank you. And now please go ahead with your follow-up question.
Thank you. So, Sam, you mentioned the schools that are open. I think you're referring to the schools that are open and they're already overflowing, right, with the number of portables. We've seen that a few times in Thames Valley in particular. And that's an issue with capital funding that comes from the province. And it's a model that I would say needs to be reformed. And I'm curious if you and Becky and any other municipal candidates, Mary comes back, would support the school board trustees in lobbying the province to revisit that funding formula.
Well, I want to see exactly. Should I go first?
Okay, yes, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I'd want to see exactly what it is you're asking us to do, because I can't sign off on that based on what you've just said. Okay, and I want to learn more about that formula, and I want to learn more about what the problems with that are, and I want to understand better how that's going to improve our schools. I am very open to working closely with members of the school board. Absolutely. And I do think we have a silo approach to government, and part of that is caused by provincial law that puts us in our silos. But I think councillors and school board members, trustees, are really going to have to make an effort to work together. And I'm willing to do that. And I don't know if you're a member of the school board or a candidate for the school board, but I'd look forward to working with you. And if it's going to take looking at a different formula, absolutely. I'm not adverse to that. And the city has an important role in terms of is my time up? Advocating with the province. And I wish I could be better on that question, but that's, yeah.
Thank you, Becky.
I'm also not familiar with what you're asking, but I agree that we need to all work together. We can't keep working separately, right? We need to work together on the problems that we have, the issues that we face, whether it be, new schools because there's too many portables at schools and there's no classroom space, and do we work with the province? I agree, we have to work all together to look at these issues after you review things, right? So,
Thank you. There's two more questions. Okay, the person in the back and then the woman on the side.
I'm just curious, so there was discussion earlier about taxation, of course, and one of the comments that was made by candidates is looking at other revenue streams. You know, of course, nobody wants to raise tax, but sometimes there's a need to. There's been, I think, some important discussion about, you know, making choices in budgeting. But what are the other sort of revenue streams that might be considered for the municipality?
Becky, would you like to go first?
Well, both the federal government and the provincial government have a lot of funding programs where they make grants, other types of payments to municipalities for various types of programs. And I think we have a great staff that really understands what those programs are and how you get the money. It's like being an academic. You always have to be out there hustling for money. You have to always understand what the granting application deadlines are and who the granting agencies are. And I think it's similar with the municipalities. We need to be really actively pursuing federal money, which is there, and provincial money. I'll leave it at that.
Becky, would you like to go?
No, that sounds about right. You know, I mean, there are different federal, provincial grants that the city can look at. Grants, do they pay? If if we can go without raising taxes, that's of course the best. But to, again, go out to the provincial and federal governments and see what they have to offer for money, for grants or loans or whatever, would be something to look at. Probably not loans, because you have to pay that back, but grants, etc.
Okay, the person on the side and then the person in the middle over here after. Please go ahead.
Okay, not a question, but a comment, or perhaps a question for you. Is there no one, not necessarily on council, but within the city structure, that is looking for new businesses to come to London? The more business you have, the more jobs you have, the more people pay taxes, less homelessness, hopefully less poverty. It sort of creates its own situation. Is there nobody in London who is looking at who can we bring in here besides the people with the parents?
Besides who? Sorry? Oh.
That's a joke. They're apparently doing very
They're doing great, yeah. Please go ahead, Sam.
Well, I mean, we have the London Economic Development Council, and we have Downtown London. We have the Chamber of Commerce. We have a number of groups that are actively trying to promote new businesses to come to London. And I think the city has to look at what are the conditions that City Council can create that'll make it easier for new businesses to make the decision to come to London. And I think the two big problems we have right now is the lack of an adequate transit system, because I think that is going to be an impediment for people who want good jobs to come here. And we need good paying jobs. We need jobs. We don't need jobs. We need careers. We need to be building the opportunity for people to come to London and make this their permanent home and have careers. But we need to create the conditions. And right now, the lack of affordable housing in this town and the lack of an adequate transit system, I think, are the two main, and the deplorable state of downtown, I think are issues that stand in the way of our potential that we could reach for economic development. And I think we have a lot of potential because we have some wonderful skills and disciplines that are going on at Fanshawe College and at Western in the area of engineering, in the area of computer science. There's just so many wonderful things that are happening in this town. And I think the city could live up to its potential, but we need to create the conditions where people want to come here.
Thanks, Sam. Becky?
At Western, Social Science Department has a program to try to keep some of the students that have graduated in town, and they work with that London Economic Development Corporation. And they have 10 positions that they fill a year to try to retain this talent that is coming out of Western. Human Resources also has a program for students when they graduate to try and keep them here in town. As for attracting small businesses to London, well, maybe it could be a permit or a zoning problem, right? So maybe the permits and zoning should be looked at also. Like, where do small businesses want to go? Is there a problem with where they want to go, right? Like, it doesn't have to be small. No, any business. That's true. Any business, sorry. Yeah, but there's zoning and permits that also are involved, right? So, yes. So, you know, maybe someone who wants to come to London, you kind of get them through a little faster.
Thank you. So I believe we have one last question. Please go ahead.
Okay, my question is somewhat similar to this lady's question. For many of the issues that require funding, such as the environment and public safety, if we're not going through the traditional route of raising taxation, then do you think if there is an industry or a business or a market solution for these things, and especially because our ward 6 is the site of industry academy coordination with the university, then do you think the council can provide radically like a radical departure from the past in providing the innovation in industry, in coordinating with the industry, or in having market solution for these problems?
I become increasingly skeptical of market-based solutions, because what I see with market-based solutions, while there is a certain job creation capacity there, it's always a question of extracting profits from the community. And I'm not against business. I'm not against corporations. I'm not against the private sector. But I want to see the benefits of the economic activity more equitably allocated throughout the community and based more on democratic principles. And I think that's possible. But I think that the council is going to have to look increasingly to partnerships with nonprofits. The university has so much to offer, and we have a very, very vibrant nonprofit sector in this town. So yes, there will be the need to resort to market activities, but I think we just should not put all of our eggs in that basket.
Thank you. Becky?
Okay, I'm not sure about that question, sorry. So I'll pass.
No problem. So this marks the end of the formal portion of our evening. Oh, there's one more. We'll leave it at the one, as you already had an opportunity to ask, but please note that after these formal questions, there's still an opportunity to ask questions to the candidates individually, but please go ahead with your last formal question.
We had the rank battle last time, it seemed to be a big success, and then the province shut that down. Do you think that's worth revisiting or worth a challenge, or what's your opinion on the state of the democracy?
So the question is about ranked ballots. Becky, would you like to respond?
I didn't really think about ranked ballots because it was unusual that London, right? London was the only one that had that, right? And it was the only time we ever used it. So I don't think we need to revisit it. I mean, it's pretty cut and dry, right? You vote for someone and the vote counts. Sorry.
Sam?
Ranked ballots are an important democratic reform. And London should be proud of the fact that we were the first community to institute ranked ballots. And it wasn't easy. A lot of thought went into it. The good thing about ranked ballots is it really encourages new candidates or candidates that really aren't sure of where they're going to stand. As it is now, the first past the post it isn't great. We see a lot of wards where there are people running, but I liked ranked ballots. I think it was an abomination that this provincial government took away the ability of the municipalities to determine their own future. Municipalities need more power, not less power. Municipalities need more discretion in terms of their governance structure, not less. We've seen the problems in Toronto. Now we're going to see the problem with the strong mayor. I do not want the province interfering with municipalities. And I think what the Ford government did, taking away this wonderful democratic reform, and the city clerk did such an excellent job implementing this the first time. And other cities were starting to look at it. So London's doing something really good here, and the province says no.
Thank you. So I would like to thank each of the candidates for running for office. Thank you for participating today and for taking the first step in serving your community. I would also like to thank each of you in the audience for coming out today and informing yourself about your local candidates. Finally, don't forget to vote. Election Day is Monday, October 24th. Feel free to stay and talk with candidates as our volunteers clean up behind you. We will ask everyone to leave promptly at 9 p.m. sharp. Thank you.
Due to the length of the preceding program, we now join the regularly scheduled program already in progress.
Not interested working to get the extra marks anymore. How do I get her remotivated?
Yeah.
So we talked a little bit about this at the beginning, but the fact that you talked about there is a huge stressor for some kids who always have had a certain mark and then it goes down.
Well, it was again part of what created some of these mental health issues, because again, when you raise kids and you tell them your job is to be a student, and to be a successful student is to bring home those A's for mommy and daddy, or mommy and mommy, or daddy and daddy. The problem with that is that ends up becoming part of their personality identifiers. It becomes part of their persona. I'm the scholar. That's who I am. I'm the dean's list. That's part of my person. That's right. The same way that people in athletics were like, I'm the hockey player. I'm the soccer player. I'm the jock. When we lost athletics, a lot of people were plunged into teen depressions, youth depression. In fact, I read a horrible statistic yesterday that 1 in 4 kids between the ages of 13 and 24 have their hospitalization admittances based on mental health issues, not physical issues. 1 in 4. So, and that was before the pandemic. So I can only imagine what those numbers were. But when you say you're no longer a scholar, you're no longer an athlete, you strip away all these things that give our identity, that's very hard on somebody's psyche. We had a lot of kids really struggling with that. So if your thing is being on an A list, and because you didn't thrive in online learning, and now you're a B student, there could be a real giving up there. But to the point of this question, the other thing I'd add to the conversation here is, I think what also happened with the pandemic that we're needing to, when I say catch up or get corrected for still, is that a lot of the marks were the school, in an attempt to help students with this new challenge, really had to jump through a bunch of hoops. And so they were saying things like, well, just hand in what you can, or everybody passes no matter how hard no matter what they got or whatever. Right. And so I think in that making accommodations, and I understand where they were coming from, what I heard from a lot of students was, it doesn't matter anyways.
No.
And as soon as it became arbitrary and it doesn't matter, we lost a whole bunch of motivation there too. Like, this is stupid, this doesn't count, no one's looking at this. They really lost the point of education. Mm-hmm. So I think for those, if A's were really important, then they're like, well, they're giving A's to everybody, right? Or, well, I don't know, I got B's and the world didn't change. So I think to your point about getting inside the child's mind and finding out what is going on for them, that something that was at one time important to them is no longer a value. Mm-hmm. And what shifted for them around that. And reinforcing the idea that you can be whatever level student you want, and this is where I'm saying about putting the correlation, the harder the work, the higher the grade. Now, parents have to be ready for the painful point that sometimes our kids do change their values. And they go, yeah, before the most important thing in my day was getting an A. I really liked that pat on the head from my teacher. I really liked impressing grandparents with my report card. But now I'm sitting next to Billy Bob, and now he's the most important thing. And a lot of kids went through puberty during the pandemic.
Right.
And you know what? They've got other things they're interested in.
Yeah.
And so they are competing with social media, and they are competing with, wanting to be social. And they might say, B+ is all the energy I want to put into it. And so for parents, that might be frustrating because you're living below your potential, but you can't want it more than they want it. It's never going to work. But you can have a dialogue about, I am sure that you are made of the stuff that whatever you set as a goal for yourself, you'll get. So you might say, what is your goal for English this term? And again, making a commitment and a plan with their teacher. And if they say, like, yeah, I'm going to be good with a 75. You're like, okay, well, I know you could get an 80 or an 85 if you did X, Y, and Z, but they're not going to, you can't have the goal of 80 and they have the quiet, hidden goal of 75. It's not going to work. So you can say, I'm so surprised that you're satisfied with a 75 because I know with more work you could get more. Why is 75 a good number for you? You know, and again, I would make that part of a teacher-child conference. And then you can again just to map things out. You might find that if you look at how the course is laid out, there's some people who do really well on tests and some people who do really well on assignments.
Right.
And so you might be able to say, listen, in this particular course, you do better on the essays. That's worth 40% of your mark in this course this year. So let's map out your time so that you're putting your right time in your right testing things. Because you get a lot of kids who just have bad time management. They'll have a test that's worth 60% of their mark, and that's the thing that they cram for. It's like, that's 60% of your mark. That would actually be really worth plotting out some study time.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? So I think in those ways, parents can help create the structure to help them reach the goals that they want. And I think when they start hitting those goals and they have that structure, that scaffolding around them, they might just say, well, maybe I'll try for 80 next term. But as we're trying to re-engage students, we have to kind of meet them where they're at and be okay with where they're at, and then see if we can't move that, get them inspired to move that mark a little bit more.
Very good. Let's talk about your website, because I know you have a lot of information that's available on your website about this topic and so many others.
Thank you. Yeah, I do. It is sort of like the clearinghouse for all my materials. And I'm a parenting expert, but I'm a content producer. That's what we call it now. Thank you. The young people are telling me that. I'm a content producer. So I have all kinds of video clips and blog posts.
I don't think the young people are telling you that.
No. I'm learning these new words.
Yes.
So they're all on my website is the point. So it's kind of one-stop shopping. There's a whole resource page of books and other recommended pieces. There's a great searchable, put in, well, I think I told you, you know what my most popular hit was, still wedding pants at 8 years old. That's actually been overtaken by a parenting quiz I have on there. There's a parenting quiz on there. That's now my #1 reason for people finding my site. But anyways, tons and tons of information, including my books. And as well, I have the most recent episodes of my podcast, which you can also listen to on Spotify and Apple, but it's called Parenting the Adlerian Way. So all my social handles are there. Go check it out.
And I always direct to your website because I know that is kind of the epicenter of where you can, but socials, podcasts, there's lots of information about all the different avenues, your books, for people to be able to reach you.
Do and do reach me. I also have a private practice right now. Unfortunately, with the pandemic, I have a very long wait list. But if you'd like to work with me individually and you've got 6 to 9 months, it's not a burning issue, then get on the wait list too. So I do individual counseling as well, family and individual counseling.
Amazing. Thank you so much for joining me on the couch once again. Thank you to everybody at home for joining us in our parenting show living room. We love having you join us. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you next time on the Parenting Show.
This program is brought to you by Ignite TV. Now you're in command. Visit Rogers.com for more details.
You're watching Rogers TV. Call the Rogers TV viewer response line. Email us or connect with us on social media.
Flooding is causing widespread devastation in Pakistan. More than 1,000 people have died. 1/3 of the country